Welcome to today's episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. I'm your host, Mischa Zvegintzov, and today we're diving into the art of transforming your business from a hobby into a thriving enterprise. We're joined by the phenomenal Christine Campbell Rapin, a business mentor and consultant with a track record of leading more than 400 companies to over $1 billion in revenue. In this episode, Christine shares her invaluable insights on identifying true buyers, creating consistent client conversion, and aligning your business model with your lifestyle. Get ready to learn how to value scale your business and achieve the success you've been dreaming of. You know when someone is selling from stage and at the end, the audience gets up and rushes to the back of the room to buy? That's a Table Rush. My name is Mischa Z, and the Table Rush Talk Show is all about bringing you the tools, strategies, and tactics that you can use to grow your audience and inspire them to buy. Welcome, everybody, to the Table Rush Talk Show. Today, I am very excited to have with us Christine Campbell Rapin. Did I say that correctly?
Not quite, but close. If you were French, you would get away with it.
Well, tell us, how do you say your last name?
Rapping.
Rapin.
Like we were rapping in some music.
Okay, love it. Love it. Okay, and so Christine, you are a business mentor, consultant, and you own Clear Acceleration Incorporated. You have a no-nonsense approach to helping business owners achieve consistent client growth by improving client conversion rates. And I thought this was pretty cool. I have to say, you have worked with more than 400 companies to create over $1 billion in combined revenue. Now that's pretty exciting, I got to say. Does that excite you when you hear that about what you've done?
It actually blows my mind because at first I was like, it can't be the real number. And then I was going back and I thought, the funny thing about it is a whopping number. So yes, it does blow my own mind. Because I think, God, am I really that old? But the other thing that it really reminds me of saying is every single dollar was $1 at a time. Like I can remember, that first dollar. I can remember the first sale of any program. I can remember the first time, like, oh my God, this is really happening. And that big number becomes all those little moments stacked. And so it blows my mind in the kind of domino of it. But I also go back and when someone would say, well, how many is that? And I go, think about how many pairs of shoes that is. Whatever your thing is. I think about how many sports cars that is. Revenue is built $1 at a time. Don't ever lose sight of that, but you stack them.
I love that.
If you know how to build the foundation.
Yeah. So I'm at your website, ChristineCampbellRapin.com. Hopefully I said it correctly this time. And that will obviously be in the show notes and the link for anybody who's listening and or watching and wants to follow along. But you have create a consistent client growth engine by learning to master the three non-negotiable business foundations. Talk to me about that in relation to creating the 1 billion in combined revenue, if that question makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yeah.
I always tell people really candidly, one of the best things you need to know is that I didn't set out to mentor other people. I set out to just be a good entrepreneur. And I am one. That $1 billion reflects a lot of trials, tribulations, great moments, and huge setbacks along the way. And when I started my own entrepreneurial journey, I set out to build my own empire. That empire had small dreams. Just to be clear, it was $10,000 I was looking to create. It wasn't millions and billions. It was an extra $10,000 could retire us a lot earlier. That was my goal. Let's just build 10. And yet I was building my first business 1 hour a day. That's it. I had a big corporate job. I was getting married, building houses, suddenly having bonus children. Like I did not have the luxury that people think you need, which is a lot of time to do something great. And that's not true. And I said, well, I'm going to commit 1 hour a day. And that was the commitment I made to my then fiance and said, you guys can watch 2 episodes of Friends while I go focus on this me time and I'm going to build something. And that was just the agreement going in. But very soon into that journey, within the first year, people kept saying to me, what the heck are you doing? Because I can see it moving and I know how little time you have. What's the secret? And I was like, there's no secret. And I didn't mean that glibly. I just was like, there's no secret. It's business. I treat my business like a business. And everyone's like, that's a t-shirt catchphrase. I hear it a lot, but I actually think you know what it means because you're doing something that most I don't see achieve. And it went down to, can I buy you a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or a beer or a walk on the river, like depending on how people knew me. And they would ask, and I would tell them, I'm happy to tell your audience, how do you grow a business? It's simpler than you think. It's not effortless, but it's simpler. And I said, what I started to observe is that even when people had had success, they didn't trust it, they didn't know how to recreate it, and they didn't have confidence in its consistency. And I said, there are 3 foundations. I mean, there's 5, but 3 without them, you can't get to 4 and 5. That needs to be in place. The first is you have to know how to build an audience of buyers. Nobody talks to you about that. Nobody is willing to build their business around it, except for, well, I'm going to say I'm an exception to that because that is my business, a big part of it. But without a buyer, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And it's expensive. So let's just check that reality. It's the hokey pokey you're doing with one foot in, one foot out. Without a buyer, you don't have one.
I want to speak to that really quick because I remember the day, over the last 3 years where it was like, okay, I've invested a lot into, growing my business and doing all this fun stuff that I'm sure you're going to talk about here in a minute. Uh, and I was like, I need to transition from hobby to business, like legit, right? And look at my spreadsheet, my revenue, and become profitable, right? So anyway,
and then it's a wake up call because everybody has a runway to build the business. Depending whether you're self-funded, you have loans, you are working it as a side hustle, there's a runway somewhere and you've got to figure out how to build more buyers. And so that's the first piece of the puzzle. And I will tell you, it doesn't matter whether you're building your first $10,000, you're at the 6 figures or 8, everybody at some point finds themselves out of step with that piece of the puzzle because the market moves and you're moving. And when someone sees something great, it's easy to start replicating other people's work or having your work replicated, in which case it stalls again. It's iterative. You have to keep tweaking that. But the first foundation, don't delude yourself. You have to figure out the piece of the buyers. And just because I have a moment to tell my soapbox, your buyer is not Boise, Idaho, Betty Sue, who's 34, has 2 dogs and a college education. Okay, I know that the whole marketing world is telling you that's what an avatar is. They're wrong. Please stop doing that, because if that's actually what you think you've got, and you're like, I've got that dialed down, I know how to do this, and you're sucking oxygen on the customer growth line, I will tell you there's a gap. That's not what a buyer is. I have never recognized a buyer based on an avatar described that way. And it's important to figure out the buyer piece. And that's my jam. Love doing it. But second piece of that is, once you've got awareness of who a potential buyer is, you have to move them. Somehow. And that's what marketing is. Marketing at the biggest top line is being able to move somebody predictably from curiosity to paid client. The faster, of course, the better off for your cash flow. The ability to do it consistently means that you don't have peaks and valleys in your bottom line, and you actually have trust that you can do that, and it sort of snowballs into that $1 billion level. But you have to be able to focus on the movement. And I think we get really caught into being experts on the tactic, and there's a lot of great tactic trainers out there, and you will need them. But if they can't connect the pieces and the dominoes don't start to fall, it is really hard work. And that's where a lot of people stall. But that's the second piece, is moving somebody predictably from curiosity to paid client. And the third piece of the puzzle is the only way you get to stay at the table is if you can create value. And a value equation is when somebody says, I really need that. I can't get there on my own. I trust you to do that. Can you guide me to get the results? And I think value creation is sometimes often misinterpreted, but value creation is the offer. You've got to realize the offer is not about you. You're not the solution. You're the guide to helping somebody get the solution they want. And so without that piece converting, i.e. lots of people saying yes, again, you create the ripples, you create the roller coaster, you create the I'm on life support moments in your business. But those three things are critical. They're non-negotiable. Every business in every industry in every part of the world needs them. And often we go, I may have skipped those steps. Oh crap, now what?
Yeah, oh crap, now what? So you said, let's go touch on number three really quick. The way to get to stay at the table is if you create value. So can we get our client this avatar who's not Betty Sue with homemaker and two dogs in Boise, Idaho?
In Boise, Idaho. Less Boise. Boise's lovely. Don't know.
Yes, Boise is lovely. I mean, oh my gosh, I think Boise for a while, I'm not sure if it's still the case, but I mean, mass people heading to Boise, Idaho, right? Just grew like crazy. Yeah. I had some friends that moved there. And of course, Russell Brunson's there, if you know Russell Brunson. So I think he's like a magnet for, it must be just marketing.
Gold when a big guru starts to live where you live and everyone goes, I didn't know where that was. Let me go figure out if we should live there. Proximity is power. I got to be there.
Proximity is power. Well, I was going to say this must be marketing central or a haven, right? Just like you
the
go
tourism
there.
guy should write them a check. True story.
Let's say that again.
The tourism board should write them a check.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so people miss. You said people miss something, and I was typing furiously.
Misinterpret what value is, because here's what happens. So if this is you, I just want you to hear this might be you, and then recognize you have a gap. But people get really caught up into thinking the value is in the nuts and bolts of the offer. You're going to get 2 sessions, a lollipop, a rainbow. It's going to be in the following vision, and it's all about the how. And they think that's what creates the value, is the how, the delivery mechanic of the service. And I will tell you, for 95% of your buyers, that's not the case. Because guess what? How sounds like effort. Guess what we're all looking for? The magic bullet that's not effort. We all know we don't get it, but we still seek it. And so people get really caught up, and that's a business owner justifying their how and their price. And it's not helping you get to yes. Because what's value when we are building focused on the how is we want to sell them a unicorn. We give them a really big transformation. It's really glorious. It's usually multifaceted, multi-steps, and I want to be your one-stop shop. That's a common problem, because when I'm in a problem, I don't want a unicorn. I want a really small thing. And I don't want everything that sounds like a lot of work. I just want to solve this one nugget before I can even see the unicorn in the field that I really now do want, because it's awesome. It's a unicorn. And the problem is that we don't have a connection around the value. And we struggle as business owners, especially those that don't have consistent buyers, is thinking we need to throw more at it. And it's really easy to get caught into that trap. But I sell people. I'll give you an example. I worked with a client once who was in the world of healing, and they wanted to help people meditate. And so they're like, I want to take CEOs on a 10-day meditation. That was her program. I'm like, that's great, but CEOs don't have 10 days to do that until they know the value of those 10 days, like it's chicken and egg. I said, how about they would like to breathe for 30 seconds before they get crucified in front of a board meeting? Because I would pay for that, having been there. I would appreciate that real value of settling my nerves in front of a big room I have to step into. If that's the goal and the value to me is 30 seconds, don't sell me 10 days. And this misinterpretation is where the problem is, because it's not that I don't want what you're offering. And this is where I think it's so heartbreaking. It's not that I don't want what you're offering. It's I just don't desire it now. And that makes me not a buyer. What really gets me going is when you can slow it down, really understand what the value is to the buyer, stop justifying yourself, so that you can get things moving. Again, we go back to what step 2, you have to get people moving. And the problem for us often is we don't think it's as small as it is. And I said, I'm not here to help. Like I would tell clients, yeah, I could help you make a lot of millions of dollars. And I know I can do that. It's just history can repeat itself. I have the skills, knowledge, and expertise, but most people aren't looking for their millions. So I don't sell, I'll create you millions. I'm like, how about I create you an engine that not only do you have one client, but you'll create many. What your first win is, the first client. So I'm not selling you millions. Possible, yes, but that's the unicorn. And honestly, most business owners don't want $1 million business. It's a small group, really small, 1.2%. So this illusion that we have all this, that we will show you the how, is really just distraction, because that really makes the buyer think that you're the solution. And trust-wise, yes, they need to value you as the solution, but you're not the solution in and of itself, because they can't just take what you did and apply it to them. I don't know who that's working for. It's not, because you and I are not the same. You and I don't have the same lens. We don't have the same backgrounds. We don't have the same aspirations. So I can't just take it and wear it like a coat. But if you could show me how I put on the coat, how I walk with the coat, when I use the coat, a season to putting it out of the closet, maybe I want to trim it, style it, do it something different. Suddenly now that coat's and what you can do and teach me, guide me to use, is really valuable.
I love that. So if I'm hearing you correctly, I heard two things. One is it's almost like find the next step or the next thing that your client is craving, wanting, feeling they need. So in your case, you said, hey, really, the people that I serve a bunch of, if I heard you correctly, was I'm just trying to figure out how to get that next client and then figure out how to get a few more of those clients.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Right. So that's
sure.
almost like versus like, hey, you're going to have your second home in Boise so you can go visit Russell, right? It's like,
In
yeah,
a lake
no.
house, in a
Yeah,
summer,
your lake house.
somewhere near that you can get to. And it's true, because the issue that people have is, remember, you want to be the first domino. Like, for you to be having money put into your pocket, you're the domino, the first, which does create the movement. And you need to be seen as the trusted first one I want to tip over. And it creates movement. And if you can help guide somebody to stay in movement, of course, we know that's the least amount of energy. That's why we want to focus really on movement. It's so much a part of what I do when I'm mentoring. I said, where are you leading me to? What's the next step? And it's not about the rush to the next step. In fact, I'm trying often to slow my clients down, because the business needs to be simple. And we often undersell ourselves on simplicity, thinking that complexity sounds good and it makes us really sound important, but people don't want complexity. And in fact, the biggest thing that people value is help me distill something that's complex so that I can stay the course, I can start to build momentum with the results, and I actually feel like I know I'm in control. It boosts certainty. And to do something well, when you can simplify it. And I think when I'm looking with business owners who want to get, from A to B, whatever that scale looks like, I always say to people, where people struggle is they don't understand the value. It's not small enough. They haven't thought about the movement of how to get somebody curious about it. And they can't recognize when's the moment to say, that's the first piece of the puzzle. Are you curious what it would look like, feel like, lead to if we tipped it over? Because there's something on the other side. And what a buyer can't figure out is, I know I want it. And their biggest question is what? How do I get it? And you're trying to sell the how is the program. I'm like, no, that's just the vehicle. How is a different conversation in their mind than yours. And as soon as we start to bridge those gaps, I said, this becomes an engine. Because you're like, I see the pattern. I can recognize the pattern. I can interrupt the pattern. And boy, is it fun to help someone figure out how to leap over to the other side. Like, that's play. It should be the play. Otherwise, you're in the wrong business. You don't have a business you really want to be in. So back to you, please, rethink that, because you get to choose your business. That's the coolest bit about entrepreneurship.
That's the coolest bit. I love that thought. If it doesn't feel like play, then you're in the wrong business. I think, man, so many great little nuggets to touch on there. One is that the simplicity piece. I love that thought, Because I think we can get caught up in, if I make it more complex, there's more values. So people will need me for the complexity of the thing. But it's like, oh no, right, to help them deal with the complexity that we've created. But it's like, no, if we can simplify it, find that pattern. Love the way you talked about finding that pattern. But if we can simplify it, create that engine that you're talking about. I love that thought.
Remember
Smart.
that buyers are a small group of people too. We talk about the small numbers and that small thing stacking on each other. The reason why you want to simplify it is because they're in the dark and they're searching. And they're not searching for the unicorn. They're searching for something specific in a specialist that has knowledge, capability, and leadership to guide somebody to get it. It's quite small in its scope. But if you're trying to sell steps 1 through 10, you don't show up in the way the algorithm works. You don't show up as the expert, and you don't show up as my must hire. And I said, you can absolutely build a business where you do work with people through multiple steps. But one of the most important fundamental pieces in this non-negotiables is, who are you and what do you stand for? Because it doesn't matter what your delivery mechanic is. I stand for one thing, whether you take a VIP day, a 6-month program, a year-long program, or you come into my group, I stand for one thing. I'll help you figure out the buyer piece to create an engine. What's different in the services is the amount of support you get, the speed at which travel, and the commitment level you want to make from day one. But that's something a lot of people misunderstand. That's also why we have that hobby feel, because we're trying to do too much. We're trying to stand for too many things. I said, no, I walk into a room and you invited me onto the show because you're like, you have this real clarity what you stand for. It might help my audience. I said, I got here with 25 to 30 years of experience. But now I have a really good laser at it because I've mentored a lot of people that said, let's get clear on what you stand for so that your name goes into rooms you're not in already. People refer you because it's really clear what you can get to. I can really identify the movement pivot point of that problem and go, when you're here, here's the signpost. I need you to go speak to Mischa because he's the one who will get you on that first domino falling. And if he's a good business owner, he's got a great network. He'll take you only so far because that's his expertise. And then he'll graduate you onto someone else. But you stay in the movement. You stay in the connections. And guess what? The ripples happen. And that's what I'm like. More of us will be succeeding and the runways won't be running out of speed and won't be crashing our planes.
So good. I love your energy and your enthusiasm and your clarity. Yeah. So very interesting point you brought up. Most people don't want $1 million business. And I love that thought because I think, again, we can get caught up and everybody wants gigantic. No, maybe they don't.
Maybe
Speak
they
a little
don't.
bit. Yeah, maybe they don't.
I think the most important question to ask yourself is, what is the lifestyle you want? And I think there's this, and I see this around the world, scaling. Everyone wants to scale. So what does scaling mean to you? Because it doesn't mean the same thing to any two people I know on the planet. And this quest for more is unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's a choice. And I say to people, I made a really controversial, we were talking this, I know in a couple of weeks ago, but I made a controversial decision in my business in 23. She will shift in 24 because the goal will shift in 24. But people were talking about scaling. And as mentors, the answer was, let's do tons of group. Let's bring thousands of people into stuff and let's sell $9 things. And I was like, why do I want to do that? I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And so I didn't. I removed all of my group programs and put them on pause. And I said, I'm going to rethink this. Because what I was observing was that was about money and drive and volume as the way to scale, which was not what I wanted for the lifestyle I wanted in this season. And I said, I will create value by serving fewer clients who really want to get the work done, because that supports the impact I want to make. And the clients that I want to serve really will say, I need not to do 20 things with 20 different people. I need to do 20 things with one person who can connect the dots to get a better result faster. And my business had the best year ever. And all of my peers thought I was crazy. They're like, but the goal is this. And I'm like, no, that's not the goal for me. And you get to choose that. when most people say, we hear a lot about the mythical six figures. I will tell you, six figures is not a lot of money, first off, as a business, because that's not profit that most people are talking about. Lots of people can get to six figures, but if it cost you 6.5 to get there, this was not a win. You don't have any money left. In fact, you owe quite a lot. And there's interest on that, and the interest rates are high. So get out that problem.
It's crazy. I think a lot of people they have this six-figure business, and I have met literally dozens and dozens of people who have got their, they're called different things, 2 Comma Club awards or different things like that have literally paid more than, like, they have lost money to get it, but they got the shiny object.
Yeah.
Right?
And I always say to people, like, when I work with my clients, I always say, what's the lifestyle you want? Like, from how many hours do you want to work? How much commitments have you got in other elements of your life that make you happy and make your life worth the vibrant way you want to get up every day? What's your business model? Let's look at the cash flow. Let's look at who you serve. Let's actually do the nuts and bolts of the business, which, the not glamorous thing that nobody really wants to talk about, but boy, do you need, so that you can make good decisions. Because I think the biggest result of working with a great mentor, specifically working with me, is my goal is to help you figure out the way to play in the world of business, which means figuring out clients. How do you get clients? That's if you don't have enough sales, you have a marketing problem, and marketing and sales are not the same things. Most marketing and sales people don't understand each other. That's why there's the great divide. But I've worked successfully on both sides of it. So I really understand the connecting pieces. But I said, you've got to figure out that piece so you can build the lifestyle you want. And I said, my goal is not only do you figure that out, but then you trust yourself to make good decisions, because the biggest long-term ROI of my services is the world is changing and I'm prepared to change. I can see this because people, what's the biggest value you bring to your clients? It's not your past success. I mean, it's a credibility thing, sure. But the clients don't hire you because you were successful 10 years ago. What are they asking for? To them, what's highly valued is you have enough expertise and a sense of humor I can appreciate to help me create the future that I desire and the lifestyle I want. So your only value is looking forward to a client. And if you're not learning and you're not walking your talk, I just think it becomes a trust break. And I say to people, are you, this morning on my LinkedIn, are you part of the future? Or are you living in the glories of the past? My clients look to my credibility 100%. They do, because they're going to invest, but they're going to say, she's got a pattern of success and she actually has a lifestyle I want. I just was watching her on social media. She took 5 days off and she spent 1 hour a day in her business and she brought in a new client. But more importantly, she was doing cool things. I want a life like that. I don't want to work for somebody who's working 100 hours a week. Not everyone wants big teams. Not everybody wants to have, I said, that $1 million business and be tied to it. What's the season you're in? Build the life and the business around to support it. And if you don't work with people in communities that are like that, you're in the wrong room. Get out, go find them. They're really much more fun when you're in that alignment space of going, yeah, these are people I want to play with.
Yeah, I love that. So good. Gosh, I had a question, but you just made me think of a different one. What are your favorite rooms to go hang out in, play in, network in, build your business in, or serve in, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, I always like communities of other business owners and business owners who I said are not about excuses. We're not sinking to mediocrity, but the people who are thinking. I will honestly say the big descriptor rooms that probably scare me half the time because they move fast. And I'm like, I'm just a baby at this. And they're like, you're not a baby at that. Go do that. You should do that. And I was like, I'm scared. Those are rooms I like to be in because you don't know what you don't know. And if you can dream it, you can build it, but you're going to need support. So the one thing I like to be in is rooms that scare me because the people in the room have been through multiple things. And when we're trying to navigate that changing marketplace, being in a peer group that says, like this week, how are we all navigating the big changes that are going on in the email space effective February 1st? all of us will have dramatically different businesses when this major change happens. And we're like, but we're a collective people of like, who are you talking to? Anybody got any experts that they know? Can we bring them in to have a mastermind? Can we help each other figure this out? Who needs tech support? Who needs, system support? Who needs, I don't know what we're doing support? Who's like, I don't even know what you're talking about support? Like, that's the communities I like to be in. The second place is I do like to be in places where there's emerging entrepreneurs, because I want them to hear good advice. I want them to hear that, one, business can be simple. Two, you have to equip yourself to get support. But here's some small nuggets to help you. And when you're ready, come ask for other resources, whatever those may look like. Could be a podcast, could be an introduction, could be, a program or services. But I want to be able to give back, because when I think about where I started and how I got to be even in the place of mentorship, it was because I was watching peers do the hokey pokey and people offering to buy me coffee or a wine or a beer or walking in the park, when they would say to me, I'm really driven to do this, but this is killing me. I'm on oxygen here. And I'm like, I honestly want to see more of us succeed.
So quick, any literal groups that you're willing to speak to or speak about that you are active in right now?
Yeah, so I belong to two things that I think are really amazing. One is invite only. It's called it's the Joint Venture Mastermind Group, and there's about 190 business owners around the world in it. They are successful business owners, and it's a lot of fun. It's the one that scares me the most, but really, really learning lots. I've got some really great things that are growing because of that proximity. And I also really like, there's a community called the Grand Connection, and they're run by good friends of mine. They're a networking group. What I really like about their community is they are very focused on education and entertainment at the same time, because people do business with people. So they're doing lots of specialized groups, whether it's podcasting or books or AI or learning how to pitch your business. Like, it's not enough to just go in and treat networking like a transaction. But I love how they're bringing in the education space. It says, educate yourselves together and learn more about each other's businesses. Because why? That will help you refer people and find joint venture partners. Because you don't have to build by yourself. But you do need to know what you stand for. Because if you're going to ask somebody to advocate for you, they need to know what they're helping somebody get the result around. Otherwise, they're just fans. And like, fans don't help you build a business. It's great. It does help your ego. It does help your momentum. And it does bring you into rooms, but ultimately bring you into rooms that are right, that have buyers, is the difference maker, in my opinion. Strongly held.
Love that. What was the name of the number two one? So the first
Brand
one was
Connection.
Brand Connection.
And if anybody wants to come play in that, I'm happy to refer you into that community.
Cool. And is there if somebody wanted to Google it or look it up?
Yeah, grandconnection.ca, I think, is their website.
Okay, cool. And then I want to quick touch on number two of the three steps you talked about, but I want to make sure we circle back around to number one. What's a buyer? Because that's your jam. So I want to be cognizant of time a little bit, but let's talk about number two. You have to move them predictably from curiosity to paid clients. So a lot of words that are thrown about nowadays are like this know, like, and trust, right? Like, we're trying to get people through the know, like, and trust cycle, or is that something? Yes. Or talk to me a little bit.
You absolutely need to do it, but you need to be thinking about, Google has this term called the ZMOT, ZMOT, which is the zero moment of truth. They say that before somebody becomes a buyer, they're going to research you. Nobody would be surprised by that, because we all instinctively do that. But it's 7 to 12 things that they're researching before you're even visible to them, or they're visible to you, excuse me. So you need to think about what are things you can put out into your business. You can choose your marketing lane. I'm not saying do 1,000 things. I'm thinking 1, 2, or 3 things and do them really well to get some level of visibility. And in that, you do need to be putting out material that establishes what makes you credible. Who are you? What would I come to you for? And have you not just done good things, but how have you recovered when you had setbacks? And that's trust building. And one of the things that we often really stop looking at as our business evolves is, what is the message we're putting out there and how congruent is it? Because for somebody who's researching, who's not giving you the time of face time, you need to be sure that those messages lead them forward. Because anytime that there's a break or a gap or a missed congruency, they go, I'm not sure, and you've lost them. So one of the things we always look back is that touch point. Like, we want to evolve, but we have to be the caretakers of the story that helps people understand, I was here, but I transitioned over here. Here's why it made sense. Here's why I'm keeping going on the path. And suddenly they're like, oh, she has a direction. Oh, I kind of feel like that's trustworthy. But you do need to script your plan so that people can have experiences. And I think sometimes the biggest thing people say is, well, it's easy for you. I said, it's not easy for me. I just started now. And 2 years from now, that piece of content might be really relevant, trusting that I'm going to be here in 2 years. I had a funny moment. I will tell you a funny story. So talk about just messaging and trust and what gets marked by the world outside of you once you put it into the universe and have the courage to get visible. So we know about AI. AI has been now a very big topic of the year, but it scraped data from the world of digital from 2 years ago when it started to create its engines, right? 2 years ago. So I have a friend of mine, personal business colleague, I met in a networking group. I've actually met her in a group that I met through the Grand Connection. And she's in Dubai now. She's from South Africa. She's building her business in Dubai. And she was working with a client, and they Googled into or put into ChatGPT, how do you build trust and rapport on YouTube? My name in my business came up as number 5 in the results, which was fascinating. Screenshot it for me. She's like, my ability to win trust with that client was just stratospheric, just so we're clear. And I am so thrilled because it's you. This is funny. And I want you to know why it's funny, because yes, it was really a very, very tongue-in-cheek moment. I have 100 subscribers on my YouTube channel. It's not big, but somehow that engine took my data, made some interpretations based on the type of content I put out there, the consistency of it, and data from 2 years ago is helping my client win a client now. Wow. This is the long tail of that engine, of those touch points. I couldn't have planned for that. I didn't do it for that cause and effect, but the ripples are starting and the momentum comes. And I'm very intentional because of my experience in marketing that I put out different types of content to build know, like, and trust, to give people different ways to consume experiences with me so that when they do come and have FaceTime with me, they've made a lot of assessments along the way. They are clear on what I stand for. They are clear that solution support is probably a good place that they're exploring, and they want to have a conversation. They're often coming into the room saying, I want to talk to you about this program because I've also looked at it. I want to know if this is a fit. What they're telling me is they've already trusted me to deliver the result, and they still have some uncertainty in themselves. So how can I help them? And I have to assess, are they ready? Because if they're not ready, I simply won't make an offer. And I will tell them, I don't think you're ready. Because my integrity won't allow me to just take money. I don't want to be like that in the marketplace. That's not how I wanted to volume scale my business. I wanted to value scale my business, which is when you're ready, let's play. But the long tail is everything. So you need to put content out there, but you need to be intentional that you don't get caught in just education. Because honestly, education is the least consumed content until somebody's a buyer. And when they're a buyer, yes, they need education content. But too many people think I'm going to educate you and then I become a likable expert. But I'm never the hired expert. And you don't have buyers. So let's break that cycle. That's what I invite my clients to do. I said, let's break that cycle, because I don't want you to stay the likable expert putting out tons of entertainment and info if it doesn't create movement to a buyer conversation.
So let's go on that a little bit more. Because a lot of the noise, or a lot of the what we're being told as entrepreneurs is educate for free. right? Educate for free, educate for free. And you're saying, yeah, that's great, but realistically, you're not going to have buyers.
Well, you're missing a key piece of the puzzle. Like,
Yeah.
I'm educating for free all the
Yeah.
time. This is a good
Yeah.
example. We're in a podcast.
Yeah.
But what I'm telling people is you need the education first. And here's what my lens is on the
Okay.
education. I will tell you that you will need support implementing it. And when you need support implementing, here's why you should consider coming to me.
Mm.
That second and third piece of that statement is critically missed 95% of the time. And that's why you don't have buyers.
Mm.
I'm going to tell you two things grow your business: how many people you know that could be buyers and how many offers you're making. That's just fact. But when you go, I don't know how to improve that. Well, then what? You're going to need somebody who does know how to improve that. And I need to be in my content thinking about how can I show you what I do, how I think, and know the foundations that I can bring to the table to teach you to get you that result. That piece of the puzzle has to be there. And people think that then the call to action is, well, I'll educate you and then give you a free lead magnet. And I'm not saying the strategy is wrong, because hey, that can create movement. It's a good piece of the puzzle. But if the lead magnet is a Band-Aid and they need open heart surgery, they're going to take the Band-Aid from you. And when they're hemorrhaging, they're going to go find a surgeon to do the open heart surgery. And it won't be you. I hope. Please, I hope it's not you when you're maybe not skilled and qualified to be an open heart surgeon. But one of the most impactful things someone said to me, who is in this mastermind that I'm part of, said, stop giving people Band-Aids when they need open heart surgery. And that's what I thought the group programs were in the marketplace. They're Band-Aids. They're about volume and everyone being cookie cutter, and nobody actually gets the results, and half the people don't even complete. I'm like, I don't want to play there. But what do they need? Open heart surgery. They need one-to-one support through their business, through their lens, connecting to good people to get the results they want. I said, I'm going to offer the open heart surgery. Small group. I have a certain number of clients that take at any given time. I only onboard a certain number of clients per month to keep that open heart surgery really, really effective. And that if we need to go back and still improve other areas of health, we can. That's a choice. Yeah. I think we're often missing some fine tuning, though, on the education piece, because telling people that this is how it is and not telling them it might be hard, you might have road bumps, here's what it looks like, that's totally normal. Let's normalize the speed bumps that are going to come, because they will. And then say, when you hit them, they're going to look like this. And here's how I can help you navigate it. That simple tweak will have a big impact in your results. And you'll honestly spend more time talking to buyers than tire kickers who just want to come pick your brain.
Love it. So good. So let's talk about, you literally said, what's a buyer? That's my jam. So yeah. Talk to me, like what comes to your head right away?
So the first thing is buyers are characterized by kind of three key things. All three need to be here for them to get out their wallet and invest in your programs and services. The first thing is, I am problem aware. And this is where a lot of problem happens, because you spend time trying to convince people that they have a problem. And that's not a buyer. And that's why you spend so much time educating, because you're like, but pay attention, you're the buyer. And they're like, no, I don't think so. That's a long runway to being broke. But the first thing is they're problem aware. They already know they have a problem. Don't convince anybody. That's sales. We're in marketing here. Second piece of the puzzle is that I have tried to solve this multiple times on my own, and it's not gotten the results that I'm looking for, which means, therefore, I am open to support. Doesn't mean I'm 100% comfortable with it, but I am open to it, because I am not breaking the pattern. And the pattern is repeating. And I've done the free things. I've done the self-will things. I've done the discipline that's fallen apart. But, I just want to get brutally honest with myself. I'm not getting there fast enough. And I don't trust myself with the current inputs to get me there. So they're open, and they're seekers as a result of that. That's an important part. Number two. Number three, what's really, really important is that they are prioritizing this as a problem to solve. And there's commitment to the work that it will require. So they're not deluded into the magic pill thing. They're like, this is going to suck probably. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I am not going to live with a comfort zone which isn't serving me. I am prepared to put in some investment in money, time, and resources. So when those three things are present, they are at the tipping point, and you need to be able to intersect it and invite them onto the other side. And that's a strategy. That's the marketing piece. That's the know, like, and trust piece in action. And when I tell people is, if you think about those three things, you have to be able to identify them quickly, to know who are you talking to take the leadership to know what to do next. Because I tell my clients, there's an analogy I use, which is people are in 3 lanes of traffic. Your job when you're networking, connecting, meeting, speaking, whatever marketing strategy you're using, is to recognize, qualify, and assess the next steps. That's how you use your time efficiently. But the slow lane is the someday client. I'm in the field of periphery, but it's not a priority to solve this. I might not even be that aware that this problem applies to me because it's not a current crisis. A lot of people get caught in the slow lane because they're educating and they have fans there and it feels great, but they're not buyers. Be careful. Get out of that lane. Some of your content can be attracting that group, but recognize they're not a buyer yet because there's no priority, half level of awareness to the problem, and I'm not seeking yet. And too many businesses stall here. The middle lane is somebody who says, I have a problem, I repeat the problem, and I white knuckle my way through it. That's your bread and butter of your business. That's how you will create consistent income. That's the group that says, sounds like it really is tough in that pattern. Do you know that that pattern isn't the only option? That's the curiosity piece. Are you curious to know what your life would look like if that pattern was broken? And you were better off by that brokenness to be on the other side? That's a disruption. That's the piece of the puzzle that sparks the curiosity that gets them moving. Tell me more. Who are you? Why should I care? I might want that, is the journey you take them on. But that's the middle lane. That's where your business needs to be built around. That's the engine I often tell my clients that we're going to create. The fast lane is the unicorn client who's already problem aware, already is likely aware of you. You are on a short list of potential vendors or suppliers or people they might put money in pockets with. And they're waiting for you to say, now, let's do it. Let's make the offer. And sometimes the problem in the unicorn client is you don't lead an offer. You don't talk about your offers enough. You're not clear enough on what you stand for. And you're not watching them realizing they're ready. And if you do your business and you work to create this system that's human in nature, you have a lot more unicorns in your business. And somebody moves very quickly from curiosity to paid clients. How do I know when my clients are succeeding? They send me texts all the time. I had a unicorn today. I'm like, awesome. It's working. And when someone came to me recently in my business who'd heard me on a podcast, I've had a lot of people come to me through this medium and said, I heard you on a podcast. 10 minutes in, I decided I need to know more about you. I've now binge watched your content. I want to invite you onto my show. I think I want to come to your event. I want to then say, I think I want to be in your group. We talk a little further. And she's like, actually, I need to be a private client. Well, that's 5 weeks because she's a motivated buyer. And she's like, I can see the potential. I hear your clarity. And guess what? I'm done. I can't be here in December 2024 in the same place. And I know investing is important. And I think you can get me there because I like how you do business. I'm like, awesome. What does playing look like? That's the engine we want to create. And it is when business gets to be a lot more fun. And focused effort is way more enjoyable than throwing spaghetti at the wall. Trust me.
That's amazing. Hey, I know you're Canadian, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I've in over the last 3 years, I've really noticed how I'm going to say I think a disproportionate amount of successful entrepreneurs and Hollywood, I'm going to throw Hollywood in this bucket, are Canadian. And right. And
for
yes,
the fact that we're such a small country, yeah, there's a fair number that pop. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like who's like the talk show host guy? Isn't one of those guys Canadian, or one or two of them are, I think.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But and then as I go to my as I go to events and, entrepreneuring events and interview people and talk to people such as you. Yeah. So talk to that. What do you think that is? Why?
I think the first thing is we're curious. We're curious because we are community orientated more. Like we do have an approach that is, if you live in the north, like anywhere in the winter, and your car dies, there's going to be a stranger that helps you. And we are driven a little bit by our social fabric, which allows us to say we want to connect. And I think the biggest thing that makes a difference in my business is I intentionally say I do it low tech, high touch. It's not to say that there's not automation, but I don't ever bring in a client that I haven't talked to in any of my programming, because I want to make sure, one, we're connected, we share similar values, and I'm curious about you as a human being, because I want to know when I need to offer help and when you could help me if the case needed to be. And I think because of maybe even because of the weather, we have this expectation of community, and that means we're connecting people to people. And I think connecting people to people is key. That self-independence, which I would say is much more an American trait, isn't always serving you.
Mm.
You can get there by yourself. I know it. But when I hired my first mentor and I committed to 2 years, just hear this, I committed to 2 years. I had one client at the time. Why did I do it? Tushi had skills that I lacked. She was a fast mover. She was really direct, and I needed to hear stuff because I was growing and evolving. And the biggest thing was she said, I have no doubt you'll get where you want to go because you are like a lightning. You have a lot of drive, and I can see it, and I know where the past successes are. What will it look like if you kept this pace up for 5 years? Because that's what it will take. Even with the drive you've got, the speed you're going, it will take 5. And that was the question where I thought, oh my God, I'll be an unrecognizable hag. And I don't think I like that idea. And in that moment, I made the decision to invest. Because that's honestly what I thought. I thought, oh my God, I'll be old, wrinkled, grumpy, exhausted. I don't like that version of her. Oh, I've seen her sometimes in the corporate space, but I don't think I want to revisit and invite her back to stay. And that was the moment where I was like, yeah, you're going to need help. And I thought this person was well positioned to take me to that next level. And what that meant to me was the systems, the clarity, the stop with the shininess. She's all about the more things. And that's the biggest difference between her and I and what we do, because we have similar businesses. We serve different people, but we have similar results in terms of what our goal lines are. But I said, you want to talk about the complexity. I want to talk about the simplicity. And I will connect you to good people on the back end of this tech stuff. I said, I don't play well in that. I know what's needed, and I have good technical people I'd refer you to. But I want to make sure that the tech stuff doesn't become the distraction that stops you from doing the 2 things that grow your business: making offers and getting in front of more buyers. Because that's the piece of the puzzle that we can get really swept into when it's busy. Stop doing it. I said, anytime my business has a gap in new client growth, I look back and say, in the 90 days earlier, I stopped doing the foundations that grew my business, and it shows up. And it's a 90-day cycle, is pretty predictable in most service businesses. So I said, why will Q1 be awesome for my business? Because I have had such a fabulous fourth quarter, really consistently building and stuff. And I said, I'm making offers. It's the middle of the month. A lot of people are checking out for the holidays. I'm running 2 events personally and still making offers throughout all of December. And those people will start in the new year for the most part, but it's already locked and loaded.
So
and I said, too often, I said, Q2 is the precipice that kills quarter 4. Because what happens is if you don't have the momentum, and we're in North America, we think, I'll take the summer off. I want you to take time out of your business all year long. But doing that because you don't have a full client roster means you're going to stall in the next 90 days because you haven't done any work to build the momentum. And if you're not visible when that unicorn or that middle lane is happening, somebody else is.
Yeah. 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 I love that. It's great. Make more offers. I think a lot of us get stuck in not making offers. And if I'm hearing you correctly, what works for you currently, it sounds like, is you like to do an event. So is that like a online master class or a
Mhm.
webinar or something
Yep,
like
I run
that?
I run an event twice a month in my own business. It is about attracting an audience of buyers without the tech, and I run it twice a month. So there's always something to invite people to. There's also my own podcast, and I use speaking personally. Speaking, networking, and events are what grows my business because nobody got out of bed today thinking they needed to hire a business mentor until they go, that might be the puzzle, that crap I really am missing because I've got all the great pieces. I just am really struggling to mesh them together and I'm out of sequence. And I know it because I think what's working, I know how to do, but it's not getting me there. And I said, you have a blind spot, you need a second set of eyes, an experienced one will be a benefit. So speaking, networking, events is what grows my business. And the point about you're making about one, we should make more offers. Yes, 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 categorically make more offers. But be clear what an offer is. An offer is not a post on social media, I've got a program, buy it. That's not an offer. That's education and knowledge. When I make an offer, here's the clear distinction. I've talked to somebody, for example, and they researched me and they've asked me questions about the programs. What do you get in this program versus what do you get in this program? And I said, and they ask, based on your knowledge, that's the trust piece, and know, like, and trust. What do you think I need? I'm like, based on where you are to get to here, I think you need here. Where I think you're ready for is probably here. But before, that's still not an offer. I will say to them, I'm like, would you like an offer? I ask for permission. Yes, I think I'd like an offer. An offer on what? This. Why do you think it's the right thing to get me here? Okay, great. To get you to here on this offer, this is the investment and this is what it looks like. Would you like to move forward? This is what you're looking for. That is an offer. And I think so often, early in my business, I used to see it all the time. I made an offer and I'm like, and I would ask somebody, did you know I made you an offer? And they're like, nope. I wasn't making offers. I was dancing around an offer. I was alluding to a program by name and they're like, great, cool. Glad you got this business scale accelerator out there. They never connected that program name to something they needed because I was talking to the slow lane. Someday clients, not today clients. So I always ask the question, are you ready for an offer?
Mm-hmm.
Without that, we're still just background information, and be careful you don't get caught there, because at some point I've certainly had to say to people, are we ready for an offer? And it said, if it's not sounding like we're an offer, then I don't need, then I think until you're ready for an offer, this conversation is looping.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a helpful loop. So let me break it. When you're ready, come back.
So good. Again, I'm talking to Christine Campbell Rapin. I praying I said that right.
It's all good.
And oh my gosh, I love your energy. Um, you have a podcast, Amplify Your Marketing Message Podcast. The link will be in the show notes. ChristineCampbellRapin.com. That will be in the show notes. Again, oh man, I just love your energy, your passion. You have a clear just enthusiasm and that joy and that play that you talk about. It's evident in talking to you that that's a real thing and not just lip service. So I love that. Oh my gosh.
What a beautiful compliment.
Yeah, so good. And we could keep talking all day. I have no doubt. I do want to be cognizant of time, so maybe we will get to have a conversation number two sometime.
Right.
Awesome. And then where do you like to guide people to? So where do you like to send people to if anybody
So
over and above what I've said?
yeah, I want you actually to go to the website, and I want you to go there for a couple of reasons. And this is a huge takeaway if you're listening to just follow the steps of how to grow a business. I want you to go to my website, ChristineCampbellRapin.com. There you will be able to connect to me on social media. You'll be able to listen to the podcast. You'll be able to find about those events. And you'll also, of course, be able to understand how I can help you get the results. That's my hub. I want you to come start there and choose your lane on the next step of getting to know you.
Amazing. Um, I'm going to hit stop, and we will say goodbye, or we'll say good morning, good night, goodbye offline. Yes?
Love it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.